When thinking of British colonisation, a big question comes to mind. That is, the British could not have been successful without the help of Indian natives. But why would Indians of themselves help the British to colonise them? That's a question historians have been debating for a long time. From today's perspective, it can sound quite strange. But if you put yourselves in the shoes of an 18th century ruler or a soldier, things can make a bit more sense. Let's unpack this through a case study. Let's look at the Battle of Plassey, which took place in 1757 as a case study, because this is one of the clearest examples how an Indian alliance with the British changed history. Let me give you some background to the battle. Siraj ad-Dawla was a young Nawab of Bengal. He had tense relationship with East India Company. He attacked one of the British fort in Calcutta, and this led to the incident of Black Hole of Calcutta. I don't want to go into the details of this incident, but it was this incident which actually led to the Battle of Plassey. Because East India Company under Robert Clive, they decided to attack and regain the fort in Calcutta and take revenge for the death of the prisoners. And this led to the Battle of Plassey. Siraj ad-Dawla was unpopular amongst his own people. His own officers and noble elites were planning to overthrow him. One such person was a senior commander, Mir Jafar. Mir Jafar wanted to overthrow him and become the Nawab himself. So he had a secret alliance with Robert Clive. The deal was that Robert Clive is going to help him overthrow Siraj and instead replace Mir Jafar as the new Nawab. And in return, Mir Jafar is going to give East India Company many trading privileges and a lot of money. On 23rd of June 1757, the battle took place. Would you believe the East India Company only came with 3,000 soldiers, whereas Siraj ad-Dawla had 50,000 soldiers? You would think, hey, that's no match. Siraj should have won. But no, that didn't happen because he was betrayed by his own senior military officer, Mir Jafar. When the battle began, Mir Jafar held his troops behind. Those who went in the front, they didn't have no backup, they lost morale and scattered. Siraj ad-Dawla was martyred and Mir Jafar became the next Nawab. And after that, Bengal was effectively controlled by East India Company because Mir Jafar was dependent on them to stay in power. This was the first time where East India Company moved from just trading to political control. Do you think when Mir Jafar was doing this secret alliance with Clive, he actually wanted to hand over Bengal to East India Company? No, it doesn't make sense. Let's look at possible reasons why he did this. The first possible reason is short-term thinking and focusing more on your rivals. So many alliances with East India Company were made to defeat a rival, or in this case, overthrow a ruler. And in these alliances, they're thinking, you know what, first let's deal with our internal matter and then we'll handle the British East India Company. And usually with selfish people, they tend to do a lot of short-term thinking and they don't think of the overall benefit in the long term. So the British were actually gaining this power because Indians themselves were inviting them to settle the internal personal disputes. And they were underestimating the power of the company. The second possible reason is that in that mid-18th century, no one is thinking that British are actually going to colonise them because East India Company was just a trading company initially, and many European powers had been in India for more than 200 years and they were just trading, including British, French, Dutch and the Portuguese. So when Indian rulers would have these alliances with these European powers, they were just considering them as an ally, someone who has good military, good weapons, and they can help you. And that's something which actually even happens nowadays in different countries around the world. Another big problem was that India was actually fragmented. They were divided already. Mughal Empire was collapsing and there were too many rivals. There were Marathas, Nawabs, Mysore, Sikhs and Rajputs and probably more. They were busy fighting the neighbours or rivals and they needed allies. So they would actually hire the British or the French, just how they would hire anyone else. Another reason to choose East India Company was because they offered money and stability. So many soldiers would choose to work for them. Indian native soldiers because they would be paid regularly. And for many rulers, it was a pragmatic choice to be an ally with them because they had advanced weapons and well-trained soldiers. And that would give them a military edge over their rival. And the final point is that many rulers did realise the danger of East India Company, but it was a bit too late. The company was very strong by then. After the Battle of Plassey, literally 10 years after that, there was the Diwani of Bengal in 1765. After this, the British had control over Bengal. They were collecting taxes. They were maintaining large armies And that's where many rulers, such as Tipu Sultan and the Marathas, they realized the danger and they fought many battles against them, but it was too late. So the key idea is that many of these early rulers, they were not helping the British, the East India Company, to colonize them. In their mind, they were using the British and the French as a tool for their own power struggle. But the power struggles of these rulers was giving the East India Company the perfect opportunity to step in, make alliances, and then expand their control step by step.